We here with Andy Rue, top 32 at Oceanics.
We did it.
And also first place locals. Yo!
Also, more importantly, of course.
Alright, take us through the Digimon Gankoomon deck profile.
Alright, so not really much different from the last one if anyone has seen it before, but there might be some new people, so welcome. We have 4 Sukuramon as our level 2. This is GX Turbo more than anything, and gaining memory is really good. And I find that bringing out level 4s to swing with Garurumon to just draw a card is bad, because then you lose your stack and then you lose the game. So Sukuramon is very strong. Rookies, we have 4 structure deck Pokemon. This is for 2 purposes, so all turns plus 1k. Very big when you've got a blocker that you really need to be at a certain threshold. The amount of times that 14, 15 or 16k is kind of a decider is more often than not, so very good. And then if you can sneak one onto the field in the early game when you can, the memory gain for Summoning a Sister can make some really, really big plays where you're gaining a memory from this, memory from Systemon, memory from Sukuramon. It can add up, so it is good. And it's the best one that you want to put on your stack. We've got 2 BT6 Hakmon, recently upgraded in looks. This one is obviously, as you look at the top 5, add everything except Gunkus. I'm hesitant to play this if I'm looking for Gunkus. If I'm not looking for Gunkus, then it's fine to drop. And this is particularly important in the Blackmore Greymon matchup because finding Chesmon X is more important than the Ganku in that matchup. However, if it's not that matchup, I will happily just put that on the stack. 4 Solomons. This is a deck where you go really, really wide. Giving your opponent a free Death X is not usually the best investment. It also gives you a fighting chance into your Cross Heart and Blue Flare matchups. They can still be very difficult, but you have a fighting chance. If they've got to pay 7 for Metal Greymons, then you might survive, but you probably won't. Systemon package. 2 of the decoy ones. This is for consistency, ditch 1, draw 2, especially in non-null formats like Nats, you just want to have consistency cards, and getting sisters in trash is actually very important for the regular Ganku from structure deck, so you can set that up as well. And the decoy is a big deal when it comes to hitting Hades forces and security, dealing with Hades forces from the field, dealing with Death X destruction. It comes up a lot because there's no natural destruction protection, it only comes in from the blank. Speaking of which, 2 draw blank for the blocking. This is pretty essential when you start building up your big blocking boards. Protecting one of these to make sure you have 6 or 7 blockers is pretty good. That's it for the 3s. For the 4s, we have 1 CL from BT11. This is just for your occasional plays to go into GX and other things like that when you would otherwise have to pass turn. It doesn't come up too often, though there was 1 or 2 times where I wish I had it where I didn't see it, but most of the time it's not too important. But it can do that, you know, if you put someone a 6 or 7, but you've made a GX, summon 4 Systemons, beat over their stack, pop their other thing, check for security, like, you can usually justify the memory play. So it's not bad. You need 1, but I wouldn't run more. 2 of your structured XCL, that gives you the reboot. Very, very important, especially with your GX. You always want to be swinging for 2 or 3 and then being able to restand it so that they're ready to block literally like anything in the game. I don't think there's anything that gets as big as GX will typically be. Usually, at least after the turn you summon him, is usually upwards of 19 or 20k DP, so it's pretty good. That is sometimes in place of, or due to this CL. BT6, obviously just gain a memory, so this is one of the ones where you might swing, give your opponent 3 or 4 memory, and this combined with Sukuramon, combined with the Hakmon and a few other things, might even keep it on your turn, or memory starve your opponent, so it was pretty cool. So that's it for Sisters. 1 Mechanorimon. Still really liked this one, performed really well, still really liked it over the weekend. Against a few of the aggro decks, it just meant that they just had rookies that were just doing nothing, couldn't swing in for free, had to make a lot of tough decisions. And then when this loses value in the mid to late game, it's also just a free material to go with Chimeramon, so I still really like it. So speaking of which, that is the reason we run 3 Bauhak from the structure rather than 4. That's where I needed the spot. As I mentioned in the previous video, really this one just comes down to knowing the matchup. If you know they're going to have things that are 5k or less, you really want to prioritize the other Bauhak. However, if not, then this would be the better way to go because it'll make your blocking bigger or your ability to beat over things bigger. Really good. We have recently blinged out and we have successfully got our event back Bow Hux as 4. More often than not, you do need to remove little things, especially at the floodgates. So it's always good. You know, one of your favourite turns is just any Huckmon into Bow Huck to start with. So moving on to the 5s. 4 structure deck saviors. Not much to say here. You beat over your opponent's stuff. You summon Systemons for free. It's a very good card. There's no point in trying to convince someone it's good. It's just good. I did end up running one of the BT6 saviors in opposition to the video I put that I'd done recently. Now, the reason for this was specifically because this is a non-mulligan format. I still think this is better any day of the week, not even a question about it. However, I would rather see this 5 than no 5s because it's still searchable by all the other cards. So I like it, but in non-mulligan formats, I'll pretty happily probably go back to just the 4 saviors. Chimeras, because this is, it's a mix of your comeback mechanic, but also of your anti-aggro, and also just your hybrid for game sometimes. Just summoning sisters and you need one more swing, show up 2 level 4s, make Chimera swing for game. Essential in the deck. I would love to run 1, but there's just too many ways to search that either trash or bottom deck this card. So 2 is how many you need if you want to realistically see 1, and even then you probably won't. So it is what it is. For the 6s, so star of the show for most games is your Gankoomon antibody. I've got my other 2 alts coming in tomorrow, so it is what it is. In any of your bouncing type matches, Metalgar, anything that would DP reduce, like a lot of the purple matchups, it just renders a lot of those strategies useless. It's your big natural blocker, so ideally I take a bit of chip damage, next following turn move this up, go into this, summon system on, stave off the aggression, and then next turn you want to go GX and kind of do a 1-2 punch. By then you're going to have 4 or 5 systemons out, you've kind of checked a whole heap, and this is what kind of allows you to do all that. Got the 1 Gankoomon from the structure deck. This put in an insane amount of work. It's still perfect as a one-of, but just having the 1 archetype specific out to things that aren't immune to Digivolve but are otherwise immune to a lot of problems, it's very good. Machinedramon matchup is a great example. Very hard to deal with Faustramon or Machinedramon, but the Megadramon under it ain't so hard to deal with, so he's done pretty good. So from there, our last ones, of course, was 2 X-Antibody. Now this is opposed to the Ganku. For the Metal Greymon matchup, which is half my matchups in Swiss, this is of course the star of the show. Either going into GX to attach one of these or just naturally going into one of these if you don't pass turn. This is all you need to win. You beat over their stack, you pierce, you've set them behind like 3 turns. That's the only reason the matchup is probably favoured, to be honest. So these all performed really, really well. This might look clunky at first glance, but you've got a million cards which say look at the top 3, add 1, trash the rest. And all of these, except kind of this one, are pretty good in the trash as well too for GX. So look, I suppose there's a 1 in 100 chance you're going to open 3 of these, 4 of these, and it's terrible, fair enough. But most of the time you'll reveal 1 or 2. You say, oh yep, I'll add that to hand, and this can go in the trash later for GX or vice versa.
And hey, the results don't lie, huh?
They do. Clunky deck, by the way.
Top 32.
Bricky deck, by the way.
Bricky deck, by the way.
That's alright. 3GX. 3GX because you want to see it. And you also want it, the other reason for 3GX is you need to have it available when you want to see it. You also want to have the freedom of that if it's early in the game and you need pieces and you, for example, reveal 3, have to add something, trash something. If I see GX early, I don't want to be in a mindset where I have to take it, otherwise I don't get it for the rest of the game. So in the early 1 or 2 turns, I might trash it if there's better options. Towards the mid to late game, obviously I want to keep these because this is your finisher. And this card just does super unfair things. So most of the time this is checking for 3 or 4 checks at above 20k. You've summoned 3 or 4 Systemons in the sequence. You've made protection, you've beat over big stacks, like it really does some pretty damn unfair things. But then you just die to a Death X the next turn if you don't have Solomon, so use with caution. But it's definitely what brings this deck over the top. I don't think this deck could perform just at the 6s, it's the GX that really makes it perform. 1 Death X. same as before. Can go over the 6s if need be. That never happened. You can use it to punish big boards. Honestly, that actually never happened for me all weekend. There was a few times where I could, but in those times I was already in such a good position. I had someone who dropped a Merva, put me to 8 or 7, and I could have dropped a Death X, but also it was just fine because just going into GX and then swinging over, popping, I had the decoy out so the retaliations couldn't hurt it. You know, I think it's good for occasional matchups, but if you don't see it the whole game, that's also fun. Four Master Disciple. This is just your obviously it's an amazing card. It's 4 of your, I haven't seen what I need, so I'm just going to play a card that gets me closer to what I need. And the idea of this deck is consistency. So this is the best consistency piece where you get to take your best cards, you're putting Sisters in the trash, which is as good as in hand, and then later on you can do some crazy plays by reducing the memory. And then the final card for the tournament, so I went with the 1 Analog Youth. Honestly, because this is just basically says the same thing as this, except you don't get to reduce things later.
Yeah.
The tapping effect didn't really come up. I didn't use it for that. Honestly, I'm fine with this. I think you could run another 1 or 2 of these and it would also be fine. And compared to my last list, I dropped the Gankoomons. I think that's the only difference. Gankoomon was good against War Grey, but then I kind of, after doing a bit of practicing, realised I naturally had a really good matchup into that anyway, and oversighting for that and dropping consistency didn't make sense, so we just went full consistency and it got us there.
Clearly it worked.
It did. It did.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
What do you have to say to the haters?
Jasmine, best deck, except the other decks, but it's still best deck.
Kid, big thing.
Thanks.